The RTX 5070 Ti is about to hit store shelves soon, and if you were hoping to grab one and even try to find one near MSRP, you're going to have a really bad time. But a known hardware leaker has suggested that availability over the next month or so should improve drastically. But for the time being, it seems like the story of Nvidia's poor supply with sky-high prices is going to be continuing on. We've also got users reporting how Nvidia has dropped support of 32-bit PhysX on their latest drivers for the 50 series. Furthermore, there's also been some confirmation on when AMD's RX 9070 series will be hitting store shelves, and they could be planning on stealing Nvidia's thunder. All that and more to be discussed in this video.
Hey, if you enjoy content like this, drop a like, make sure to subscribe, and smash that bell so you never miss another video.
Hey, what is going on, guys? Danny here. Welcome back to the channel, and I hope you've all been doing well. The RTX 5070 Ti was one of the GPUs amongst the RTX 50 series announced back at CES this year. It has an MSRP of $750, and the card will be officially hitting store shelves on February 20th. But if you were hoping that this would be a GPU that would be more in reach in the hands of gamers, and also that you'd be able to find one easily, well, unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. When it comes to the MSRPs, and this is something I've been saying since 2020, when the 30 series came out, just take it with a grain of salt, especially now when you're seeing markups of over $1,000 in some instances over MSRP. It's just crazy. I don't think we've ever really had a generation where the markups have been this high. Recently, some RTX 5070 Ti's were listed over on Micro Center, and there only appears to be one model listed at MSRP for $749. That is the Asus Prime model. Also, let me remind you that for the RTX 5070 Ti, there's going to be no Founders Edition model, which, for the vast majority of consumers doesn't really apply anyway, since you can only buy it at like one place in North America. But just take a look at these AIB 5070 Ti's. The next one after that is listed at $900. That's about a 20% bump over MSRP. And then there are premium models which cost the same as an RTX 5080, well, the MSRP of the 5080, not that you can even buy that card at MSRP anyways. But when you take a look at these prices and, how much higher they are relative to the MSRP, and, this doesn't just apply to the 5070 Ti, but the entire series, then it makes you question what was the real price for these cards supposed to even be. Was the lower MSRP that Nvidia showed just a facade to create some hype and FOMO? Because at $750, the 5070 Ti, I could see it being reviewed decently. I don't know much about performance or anything, but given some of the leaks that are floating around, this could be a GPU that trades blows with the 4080. So at $750, the reviews wouldn't be spectacular, but they also wouldn't be terrible. And someone looking to upgrade from an older card like a 20 series GPU would have something easier to digest. But given that most of the 5070 Ti's are like $900 plus, and most of the 5080s are also like $1,200 plus, then we're basically back to square one, and the whole value proposition argument goes out the window. There's just been no real progress made from the last generation. In fact, I'd say things have actually regressed. And I remember, when the 40 series Super Series came out, or the refresh, you could actually find cards near MSRP or just a little bit above that. The markup wasn't terrible, but now with the 50 series, it's just egregious. To make matters worse, availability of the 5070 Ti also won't be good. According to video cards who are sourcing ChannelGate, they have stated that the initial supply of the 5070 Ti will be quite poor. Now remember what I said in my last video, even if the 5070 Ti supply was better, since this is a card that is quote unquote cheaper, that will make it accessible so that the demand for this card will be higher. And another good viable point they bring up is that over in China, a lot of game cafes are using stuff like 60 and 70 class GPUs for their PCs, and the 5070 Ti is looking like a prime candidate for that market. But speaking of availability, according to Megasize GPU on Twitter, they're a known hardware leaker. They've stated that the availability for the RTX 5090 will be stupidly high soon. Now, they don't say if that will happen to the rest of the SKUs. I'm assuming that, things will eventually trickle down. But adding on to this, they were asked about ETA and stated that in a month's time, the AIBs will get a ton of GB202 GPUs with the memory chips. Again, take all of this with a grain of salt. There's not really any sort of evidence provided here that this would happen, but this isn't also coming from a total nobody. So there's a bit of glimmer of hope that the availability becomes better. And if you really need an RTX 50 series GPU, then just wait it out. Don't pay a scalper. I know that sounds a little bit awkward to say, considering that retailers and partners themselves are now just doing the scalping. The other thing that I did want to briefly touch base upon was the fact that, what's going on with bundles at retailers, right? Even if the availability for the 50 series does become better, who's to say that the cards are going to be sold separately? Because right now, from what I'm seeing, the cards are being sold in pre-built PCs, stuff like Newegg, Amazon, they're selling them. Canada Computers, I think they're also doing that too. And the markups, again, are crazy. And the other thing too is like the bundles with off-the-shelf components. So I'm talking about motherboards, PSUs, even CPUs. They're being bundled in with those. So if you can't just buy the GPU by itself these days, you got to buy it with a bunch of parts. And you may already have those parts. And I've also seen bundles where the 50 series, like a 5080, is being bundled with a 285K. Now that's just evil, man. Why are you guys bundling it with a 285K? Like, sorry, I don't mean to crap all over the CPU, but as someone who's tested it extensively, that's just evil, man. Now, moving on, and I wanted to just briefly talk about this. This was reported by a user from the Nvidia subreddit, and they're talking about how Nvidia has removed 32-bit PhysX support from the new drivers for the RTX 50 series. So a lot of users who are using these cards, they're noticing that there is actually a performance drop on older games that still use 32-bit PhysX, and it was never updated for 64-bit. So some games apparently support like a fallback to the CPU, but I was seeing a video from another YouTuber, and they were showing the differences in terms of performance when PhysX is off, PhysX is using the CPU, and then PhysX is using the GPU. And the performance difference is just staggering. So you're going to be seeing actually a performance drop with the 50 series GPU on these older games that just don't have that 32-bit support upgraded. And this was actually confirmed by a Nvidia rep over on their official forum. So it's not like, this was an error or something was omitted from the drivers by mistake. This is going to be the case going forward. I'm not sure if, maybe they can use some sort of translation layer. But yeah, that is just unfortunate because there's a lot of older games people like to go back and play, right? And maybe they want to use mods or updated textures. And yeah, that's just a shame that Nvidia is just doing this. And for those of you who are wondering, how many games does this actually affect? Well, there is a wiki that has like a list of games with PhysX, and there are some notable titles like the Arkham series, Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and a whole bunch of other titles that, games that I would probably go back and play, like the Arkham series. I've never played those. Those were on my backlog. And, if I had a 50 series GPU and I wanted to go back and finally experience those games, knowing that I'd be getting poor performance because of the lack of PhysX support, or I can't turn on PhysX, is, I don't know, it's just kind of an experience breaker if you ask me. Now, one final thing I did want to briefly follow up on was the AMD RX 9070 series. So it looks like we do have some more further confirmation and some leaked info pertaining to when the reviews are going up and launch and all of that. So February 28th is the official announcement date. We already knew that. David McAfee was on Twitter and he was talking about it. I think the live stream is going to be at 8 a.m. If I get up early, maybe I might do a live stream. Who knows? And then March 5th is when the review embargo is going to lift for the 9070 series. And then March 6th is when the cards will be hitting store shelves. Now, March 5th is interesting because that, I believe, is the official release date for the 5070. So it seems like to me that AMD, the way they position that is that they're trying to steal Nvidia's thunder. I'm not sure what the performance is going to be like, but if they're actually doing this, that could allude to the 9070 series being much more faster than the 5070 series or just the 5070 itself. The other thing could be that pricing might be a little bit closer to the 5070 than most are speculating. Again, we're just going to have to wait and see what AMD really unveils, because right now, things are just kind of all over the place. Some of the leaked pricing that we saw from my previous video, it really seems like AMD is going to be ambitious and try to target the 5070 Ti. And like I said, pricing is just all over the place. It could be $699 MSRP, and AMD's MSRP or their AIBs usually are a bit more closer to the actual MSRP than I noticed Nvidia's partners are. But again, we're going to have to wait and see for that. Or who knows, they could just have their own mic drop situation, and all of a sudden we might see the 9070 XT price at like $549, so the same price as the 5070. And then it's going to be competing with the likes of a 5070 Ti or even a 4080 or something like that. So who knows? Things could get really excited. I just want to be sort of optimistic here, not total doom and gloom, but I'm looking forward to it. But for now, that's going to be doing it for this one. We'll be touching base in the next video.
If you guys found this video to be informative and entertaining, then leave a like. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. Be sure to check out the video description for cool links and ways to support the channel, such as using my Amazon affiliate link. And if you're interested in seeing more content like this, then consider subscribing. I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.